We often imagine that silence is empty, but the truth is that it holds everything we have not yet faced. When we sit quietly, the mind begins to reveal the heaviness we carry, old worries, unfinished thoughts, small regrets that cling to the edges of our days. These burdens accumulate not because we choose them, but because we rarely pause long enough to notice them. In moments of stillness, the first thing we meet is often discomfort. The mind begins to wander, pulling us into memories or anxieties that we believed we had set aside. Yet this encounter is not a problem. It is the doorway. The weight rises because the heart is finally safe enough to show what it has been holding. Most people avoid silence for this reason. They fear the stirrings beneath the surface. But silence does not create these feelings. It only reveals them. And by revealing them, it offers us a chance to release what has been quietly shaping our behavior for years. We begin to see which thoughts are born from fear, which from habit, and which from the deeper longing to be free. When I sit in quiet presence, I do not try to control what appears. I allow the thoughts to come, and I let them pass. Some carry sadness, others frustration or restlessness. But each one, when met with gentle attention, loses its sharpness. The mind grows lighter simply because it is no longer forced to hide. The art of quiet presence begins here, letting the silence show us what we carry, not to judge it, but to understand it. As understanding grows, the weight slowly loosens, and in that loosening, a small space of peace begins to open, calm, steady, and always waiting for us to return. When the mind is restless, it does not move like a river. It moves like a storm, circling the same thoughts, repeating the same fears, tightening around the same desires. Most people believe the solution is to fight the storm, to push away the noise and force the mind into quiet. But the mind does not soften through force. It softens through allowing. A restless mind is not a sign of failure. It is simply a sign that the mind has been running for a very long time. It has been protecting us, planning for us, defending us, imagining outcomes, remembering old pains. Restlessness is the mind's way of saying, I have worked too hard. And just as a tired body needs gentle rest, a tired mind needs gentle attention. When I sit in quiet presence, I do not expect stillness to appear immediately. The thoughts rush in like waves. They bring questions, worries, fragments of conversations, unfinished tasks. Instead of resisting, I acknowledge each thought as it arises. I do not cling to it, and I do not push it away. I simply let it be. And in that simple act, the mind begins to soften on its own. Softening does not mean eliminating thought. It means loosening the grip we have on each thought. We stop believing that every idea must be solved, every feeling must be analyzed, every memory must be carried. In this loosening, the mind finds space to breathe. Gradually, the storm loses its strength. The waves become smaller. The tensions that once felt urgent begin to fade. What remains is not emptiness, but a gentle steadiness, a quiet awareness that watches thought without being swallowed by it. This softening is the beginning of peace. It is the moment when the mind remembers that it does not need to struggle to be free. It only needs permission to rest. When the mind begins to soften, a new kind of silence appears. Not the silence of absence, but the silence of presence. It is subtle at first, like a faint echo beneath ordinary thoughts. Yet the more we relax into stillness, the clearer it becomes. This quiet is not something we create. It is something that has always been there, waiting beneath the surface of our busy lives. Most people listen only to the noise in their minds. They hear their worries, their plans, their judgments, and they mistake this noise for the whole of their experience. But beneath this constant movement, there is a deeper layer of awareness that never changes. It is steady even when the mind is unsettled, calm even when the heart is trembling. To find serenity, we learn to listen to this quiet layer. When I sit in meditation, I do not search for silence. Instead, I allow myself to notice what is already silent. The spaces between thoughts, the gentle rhythm of breathing, the subtle feeling of simply being alive. These small moments reveal a quiet that does not depend on perfect conditions. Even in uncertainty, even in sadness, it is still present. Listening to this stillness is an act of trust. We trust that we do not need to control every moment. We trust that the world does not collapse when we let go of constant thinking. We trust that clarity can rise on its own, without force, without urgency. In this deeper listening, we begin to understand that silence is not emptiness, it is intimacy. It brings us close to our real experience, without the distortion of fear or desire. It shows us that peace is not something to be achieved, but something to be recognized. The more we return to this quiet presence, the more familiar it becomes, and gradually it begins to guide us. It teaches us to move gently, speak thoughtfully, and live with a heart that is less reactive and more aware. This is the silence that holds wisdom, the silence that allows us to truly see. When we live surrounded by noise, outer noise, inner noise, we begin to believe that healing requires effort. We think we must search for answers, fix every flaw, untangle every emotion. But the deepest healing does not come from effort. It comes from quiet presence, from the simple act of resting with what is true. Pain often grows louder when we resist it. Worry tightens when we try to push it away. Fear expands when we attempt to outrun it. In noise, our suffering becomes tangled, confused, and multiplied. But in silence, something remarkable happens. The heart begins to soften around what hurts, and the pain loses its hardness. When I sit in quiet presence, I do not approach my suffering as an enemy. I sit with it as though sitting with an old friend. I let the sadness speak. I let the fear breathe. I let the loneliness stretch out its tired limbs. In this gentle space, nothing needs to be corrected. Nothing needs to be justified. The heart understands that it is allowed to feel, and because it is allowed, it begins to relax. This is the healing that noise cannot offer. Noise demands solutions, explanations, defenses. Silence simply invites truth, and truth, when met without resistance, heals on its own. A heavy emotion that once felt overwhelming becomes something small enough to hold. A confusion that once felt urgent becomes something that can wait. A wound that once felt raw begins to knit itself back together. Quiet presence does not remove our pain, it transforms our relationship with it. We stop adding fear to fear, anger to anger, judgment to judgment. We stop fighting battles that cannot be won through force. Instead, we learn to sit with our struggle until it reveals its gentler form. In this way, healing arises naturally, slowly, steadily, like light gradually returning at dawn. What noise once magnified into chaos, silence reduces to something human, something tender, something we can live with. This is the quiet medicine of presence. It asks nothing, but it offers everything. There is a part of us that believes peace must be earned. It measures our worth through effort, accomplishment, and control. Even in spiritual practice, this part of the self tries to perform. It wants to meditate correctly, to calm the mind quickly, to reach some imagined state of perfection. But serenity does not open to the self that strives. It opens to the self that releases. The self that tries too hard is born from fear. It fears being inadequate, unseen, unprepared. It clings to plans and expectations, believing that constant effort will protect us. Yet this very striving creates the tension we hope to escape. It binds the mind, tightens the heart, and keeps us chasing a peace that stays just out of reach. When I sit in quiet presence, I watch this striving self arise. It tells me to focus harder, breathe deeper, quiet the thoughts more quickly. But instead of obeying, I simply acknowledge its voice. I let it be part of the moment. And when I do, something soft happens. The pressure loosens. The striving self begins to lose its authority. Letting go is not an act of abandonment. It is an act of trust. We trust that peace does not need to be forced. We trust that the heart knows how to settle when given space. We trust that the mind, left unpushed and unpulled, will eventually find its natural clarity. To let go is to stop negotiating with life. Stop insisting that each moment meet our expectations. It is to stop gripping the world so tightly that we strain against it. True serenity comes when we release the need to manage every thought and shape every feeling. In this release, we rediscover who we are beneath the performance. The self that tries too hard begins to fade, and in its place, a quieter self appears, one that is patient, simple, honest. A self that is not striving to become peaceful, but is already resting in the peace that has always been here. When quiet presence becomes familiar, we begin to notice its gentle influence in the smallest moments. It does not change our lives by removing difficulty. Instead, it changes how we move through difficulty. It allows us to return to the world without the tightness that once shaped our reactions. We move with more patience, speak with more clarity, and listen with more care. Many people think serenity belongs only to meditation cushions or silent retreats. But the purpose of stillness is not to escape the world. It is to reshape the way we meet it. When we carry quiet presence into our daily life, the world does not feel as heavy. We do not rush as quickly. We do not defend ourselves as fiercely. We no longer treat every moment as a threat or a test. Instead, we meet each moment as it is. When I walk through my day, I let the breath guide me. A slow, gentle inhale reminds me to return to myself. A soft exhale reminds me to release whatever I am holding too tightly. In this simple rhythm, I find enough calm to stay present even during discomfort. The mind is less reactive. The heart is less guarded. And because of this, the world feels less sharp. Quiet presence nurtures kindness. When we are not overwhelmed by our own noise, we can sense the quiet suffering in others, the worries they carry, the fears hidden behind their words. Instead of reacting, we respond. Instead of judging, we understand. This compassion does not arise from effort, but from space. A spacious heart naturally sees more clearly. Returning to the world with a calm and open heart does not mean we never stumble. It means we stumble more gently. We recover more quickly. We hold ourselves with more forgiveness. And each time we lose our presence, we know how to return. This is the true gift of quiet practice. Not a life free of difficulty, but a life lived with steadiness, softness, and a heart that remains open, even in the midst of change. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and click the bell icon so you'll be notified when I publish a new video. Namaste.